Hey, thanks for tuning into the vlog today. We appreciate you following us on this vlog. And I'm Billy Applehart, author of Money Mastery, where we talk about making sense of making money for making a difference. But in this series of vlogs that we're sharing with you, we've been talking in the Christmas season about 5 characteristics of a healthy family. You know, today the challenges that come from almost every quarter of society to literally attack the family, and understanding what the ingredients are to a healthy family is critical to being able to succeed in what God has called you to do and what God's called you to be. And so behind me here, I've actually taken the time to share the first 3 characteristics of a healthy family. First one was shows unconditional love. The second one is a healthy family establishes family traditions. And the third one is a healthy family makes the commitment of time. Now today in this vlog, we're going to talk about the 4th one here that we have up here. And that is that a healthy family affirms every family member's value. You know, when we think about that sometimes, we wonder what that means. Well, sometimes we get so busy, and very frankly, because of that, we become distracted. We don't take the time to really connect and bond. I believe that, I always like to say it this way, a healthy family has bonds, they bond together, and they also have healthy boundaries. So they have healthy bonds and they have healthy boundaries. I think one of the secret things that a father and a mother can do with their children is learn how to, first of all, emotionally bond. That's why even when an infant is a newborn babe is first born, that's why even nursing from the mother's breast is so important, because it's in that time that the mother and the baby bond together. But it's also important as children get older for the father, for example, even as an infant, to start bonding with that child as well as that child gets up. Because I can tell you, when they get in that starting to go into the teenage time, there can be a separation emotionally that happens. And that's when you really have to turn up the emotional bonding activity with your children to be able to keep them connected to you. Now, today as we talk about this, it affirms every family member's value, and I'm talking about bonding. Let me say it to you this way. How we treat one another in the family is really how we're going to treat other people. In other words, how we treat each other really becomes that laboratory that I talked about a couple of vlogs ago, where it becomes a laboratory for relationships in society. In fact, one of the things that you can typically tell if someone is from a healthy family with that has good relationships in the family, it's more than likely, the odds are better that that person's actually going to have healthy relationships as an adult. And the reason that's important is because that person has had their value affirmed from other members of their family, and therefore when they walk in society, instead of walking in society insecure and kind of disconnected, they're actually walking in secure and healthy and happy. And being healthy and happy, they're able to relate to and be a blessing to other people. And so remember, we really learn how to treat each other by how by how we treat each other. We learn how to treat other people, and so that's important in the family. And in fact, one of the things that I like to say, in the years of my background, I've actually been a minister counselor with many people. I say this, that the silent expressions that you have in the family sometimes communicate much more than what you actually say with your mouth. And those silent expressions, for example, sometimes just a certain look of the eyes can convey criticism. Another, the way the body language is sometimes can convey anger. So sometimes it's not just what we say verbally out loud that's devastating. Sometimes it's the silent expressions. In fact, I brought this with me today to read to you, and I've always liked this. I've been reading this actually for at least 25 years that I've actually read this. So it's been a long time that I've shared this with many people, and I'm going to share it with you on this vlog. A child that lives with criticism learns to condemn. A child that lives with hostility learns to fight. A child that lives with ridicule learns to be shy. A child that lives with shame learns to be guilty. A child that lives with affection learns to love. A child that lives with tolerance learns to be patient. A child that lives with encouragement learns confidence. A child that lives with praise learns to appreciate. A child that lives with security learns faith. A child that lives with approval learns to like herself or himself. A child that lives with acceptance learns to find approval. So think about that for a minute. In other words, the environment of where we are and what we do in our family really creates who is coming out of that family. And so it's important that we have a healthy environment, healthy bonding, healthy boundaries in the context of our family. So I've brought here a couple of steps that I want to encourage as we're in this vlog, because we're talking about here on the 5 characteristics of a healthy family. We're talking about number 4, it affirms every family member's value. In that context, it affirms the husband's value, it affirms the wife's value, the mom, the dad. But now let's talk for a second about the child and the actual child's self-worth. I'm gonna give you a couple of quick steps here in this vlog to help you know how a healthy way that you can help build how your child feels about themselves and build their self-worth. Number 1, you need to give them a feeling that they belong. In other words, and I like to say it this, they belong somewhere, but we don't mean somewhere else. We mean they belong there in the family, they're secure, and they know that they belong in this place. Let me tell you something. One of the if you study addiction and the problems of addiction that people deal with, now this is not true in every situation. There's always exceptions to every rule. And there are good families sometimes where children just don't turn out the way you'd like to see them turn out. However, more likely than not, if you give them a feeling that they belong here, that they're loved, they're accepted, it increases their self-worth, and the kind of destructive behavior that they get tempted to do as they begin to move toward adulthood, they have a strong enough self-worth that they're not going to participate in destructive behavior. So give them a feeling they belong. This is their home. You're always welcome here. This is your room. This is your place. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But it's really important that they know that they belong somewhere. In fact, one of the things my wife and I did with our children is we always make sure they had their own room and their own space in the house. And I think that's critical because, of course, first of all, you teach them how to be responsible with that space. They've got to clean their room, And one of the things we did as our children grew up was up until the 7th or 8th grade, they had to share their own bathroom. That was a daughter and a son. And so, of course, the daughter would take longer because she's getting ready. So that was good for my son to learn how to have to deal with a female. But on the flip side, as they got into high school, they had their own restroom, so it was a lot more peaceful in the house, but they also had to keep it clean. They couldn't blame each other on why it was dirty. And so it became their space. They protected it, but they also had to take care of it. And in fact, I'm going to shock some of you with this statement, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. And I used to use it all the time when I taught on the family. It's more important that you be a healthy family than you be a religious family. Wow. And you say, you mean you don't believe that? No, I believe what your relationship with God is vitally important and everything that God has done in your life. But sometimes people become full of fear, and they become almost antagonistic in their fear, and they do it in the guise of religion. What I always believe is that you must learn to be positive in your faith. I mean, you can be aware of the dangers and things that are around you without being full of fear. But the reason I'm bringing that up is some people then take that over into religion, and sometimes there are things in religion, not in Christ, but in religion, that are unhealthy for people if they're not careful with how they deal with it. And the reason I'm bringing that up to you right now is because anytime something will take away from the self-worth of a child or the self-worth of a member of the family, then if it has to do with religion, that's not good. The Bible doesn't do that, and Jesus doesn't do that. And so when we see that, I just want to challenge you a little bit in your thinking. So number one, give them a feeling they belong. Number two, make sure you give them a feeling that they're worthwhile. In other words, find things to praise them about. Let me tell you this, several years ago, there was a great management book written, and I think it was, can't remember the author, sorry, but it was called The 1 Minute Manager, and in it, it talked about 1 minute praisings and 1 minute reprimands. What that means is when you discipline a child or correct them, you should discipline it, you should do it, but when it's done, it's over. In other words, do it short, do it quick, do it effective, and it's the same way with praisings. What you should do is always be active in your praise and building up the child. You should also be active in your reprimands if they're necessary. And be active in those, but don't camp out there. Don't stay there long. Do it, deal with it, talk about it, move on. And the reason I'm saying that is because you want to create a feeling that they're worthwhile. And one way you do that is making sure that you actually give them praise about things they've accomplished and things they've done. And then thirdly, give them a feeling of confidence. I like to say it this way. I heard a story several years ago about a young boy who took a baseball and a bat, and he took it out in the backyard and he threw it up and he swung as hard as he could. And his dad said to him, "Strike one," because he missed the ball. And then he took the ball and he threw it up again and he swung real hard. And his dad yelled, "Strike two." And then he took the ball the third time, threw it up in the air, swung as hard as he could. And his dad yelled and said, "Strike three." And the little boy looked at his dad and said, "See, Dad, I told you I was a good pitcher." So when you think about when you think about giving them a feeling of confidence, that little boy already had a feeling of confidence. But I'm sharing that with you because it's important, even in their failures, that they understand to have confidence. So listen, I really appreciate you tuning in while we're talking about this. We've been talking about 5 characteristics of a healthy family. And listen, I want to remind you that we're having our annual Wealth Builders Conference in January the 22nd through the 24th in Denver, Colorado. And right now we're in the middle of our holiday, that's Thanksgiving and Christmas sale that we're having, and it's only $139 for registration. In fact, this is the first time I've said this. I hope I'm coming to you some more, but look guys, we almost doubled in our early bird registration, the whole registration last year for the conference. So it's been an amazing success so far. Listen, I really want you to get in on it. In fact, take some time to share this video just so people can see and hear about the conference if you know people that need to come. And so make sure if you haven't made plans to come to the conference, make sure you do that. So this is Billy Uphart telling thank you for tuning in today to the vlog, and we'll see you right here at another time. God bless you.